Greetings, everybody! Welcome to the Dracovin Empire. We're ready to pierce the mists once more and head into the Demiplanes of Dread. Ravenloft awaits us once more. The domains of Dread call out to every last one of us. And a new Dread is on the agenda. We are going to be heading to Richemulot, which I'm probably mispronouncing horrifically. But yes, Richemulot and Jacqueline Renier. You are ready to travel through the mists, which I may pierce and take us through safely. I'm your host and guide, Dracovin. I will need you to take my hand and to provide a little bit of a tip. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and let me know your thoughts on Richemulot and Jacqueline. And if I'm mispronouncing it, you can let me know in the comments below, but I am bad at pronouncing even English, so it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Let's go. The gateway through the mists is open. As long as you stay with me, we may leave them safe. If not, you may be trapped forever. Welcome to Richemulot. So, it's time for us to learn of Jacqueline, of her history, and the versions of her that exist. It's going to be a bit of a journey, and I hope you are ready. Where to begin? Sources. Sources is always a great place to begin because there are three main sources I would recommend. Van Richten's Guide, if you want to use the 5th edition version of her and Richemulot, which is useful in certain ways. But core aspects of her older editions in Domains of Dread and, of course, the Island of Terror are good. It is a thing for me to say that I do prefer the land in 5e, and really a strange combination of both for her. Because there's some interesting aspects of her in old lore, but it's really not that interesting because she's just a Wererat. I'll explain. Let's get diving into old Jacqueline. And I'll talk about both versions of them and kind of compare them to. So she's a Wererat. That's the easiest way to say it. Beautiful, sinister, rat-like features, green eyes, flecks of gold, black hair that's sleek, stretches of gray that only adds to her beauty. Basically, her story comes that her family, they were always Wererats, this is an interesting aspect of it, were basically being hunted. And before they were cornered in a sewer and brought to death, strange mist opened up, and they entered them. Now, this is old Ravenloft lore, where this was part of the core, the main area of lands, which were technically interconnected, but each of them had the mist separating them that the various lords could disconnect. So basically, you could go from Barovia to Falconia to all the different ones, to Dracov. Anyway, they found themselves on the border of Falconia, and, well, Dracov being the lord of that place there. Basically, they made their home in a town there. Dracov hated the Wererats, basically. They're murdering, they're pilfering. And this included Jacqueline's family. So he sent forces to wipe them out. Once again, escaping in the countryside, basically were hunted. More mists, and then found themselves in a new land of their own. The grandfather, Claude, became the Darklord. Now, that's something we don't know much about Claude. But Claude, I guess, was the one that was so terrible and evil and wicked, caused, and his actions, which drove Dracov, a Darklord, to drive them out, helped form their own land. There were cities, there were sewers, and Jacqueline was a star pupil of her grandfather. And then murdered him in 726 of the Barovian calendar. And she became the Darklord. Yeah. Refugees show up. We'll talk about that when we talk about the land here, which is both interesting, and I do, again, prefer this. I prefer some kind of combination between these two, because it's kind of like, again, directions in either way. Anyway, so Jacqueline, lusty, manipulative, mean, rat. She's cursed that this is the thing that I think her curse is kind of dumb. She's cursed to revert to her rat form in the presence of someone she loves. Because rare rats don't usually form bonds, and love and marriage, it doesn't happen much. I guess in older editions they didn't. But Jacqueline has been cursed to fall in love. And she loves a human male named Henry Du Bois. And she's tried to make him into a Wererat. Hasn't gone well yet. But she's also incredibly afraid of being alone and has monophobia. Because of her curse. That's an interesting part of the curse. The love aspect of it, but this kind of that she has this monophobia is very interesting too. And she does have her identical twin sister Louise that, you know, is not as cursed, jealous of her Darklord sister, and has been trying to, basically they've been competing, like, you know, Jacqueline murders her sister's lovers and stuff like that. And here's the thing I love about this version of Jacqueline. When she closes the borders, it's not mists, it's just rats. A horde of rats surges from everywhere, creating a border at least 50 foot thick of rat. They hang from trees. There's no more space in the ground. And if you try to fly over it, the air doesn't support you. You slowly sink into the rending teeth and throng of rats. Unless you turn back. Yeah. It's awful and I love it. Wall of rats. It's fun. It is fun. It is just a little silly. I'm not going to lie. But I do love Wall of Rats. Now let's talk about her 5e counterpart, because there are some similarities and some differences. Fact is, in 5e, she is a Wererat. Wasn't always a Wererat. And they do, again, separate out that entire core in old history of Ravenloft, which... you know, there's a lot of lore which is being selectively chosen in Ravenloft, so it is one of those weird things there. But basically, Richemulot was a lively place, basically filled with merchants and fun and love, and it was its main 3 cities. There was a lot of wealth, they went to the merchants, and so basically the entire idea was there was a growing middle class within these areas. The Renier family, Jacqueline's family, basically didn't like this. Basically, Jacqueline was basically like, hey, this isn't great. Only Louise resented. Basically, only Louise was kind of like there, too. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Anyway, sorry. I kind of got out of order there for my thoughts. Basically, middle class bad in their eyes. So, basically, the Reniers, though, went along with the times. Her grandfather wasn't able to fight back, basically kept the family's instance going. Her twin sister, Louise, oblivious to the threat. Jacqueline wanted to correct what was going on. Wanted to fix things, make the Renier family the great noble family it was. Put down those commoners. She looked for like-minded souls, found something called the True Blood Council, a secret society there of esteemed families. She basically tried to get membership, was invited to join, went to a secret meeting place in the sewers of Pont et Museo, and when she arrived, it was filthy commoners. It wasn't just filthy commoners, it was Wererats. She didn't know they were Wererats. She thought they were just commoners. Cursed them, went to go think of the guards. They revealed their form and had her join the ranks. Basically, cursed her to be a Wererat. She accepted this new life and status as basically Remelot's first inhabitants. That was the history of the Wererats. They were the original beings that were there before anybody else spread. And this spite basically turned towards like oh, I am now a member of the original true rulers of this place. So now it's no longer lowborn, it's non-Wererats. She always has to have someone she hates. So basically, she gave her family lycanthropy. The only one that resisted was her twin sister, which she then, for this, disfigured and cast out. Then basically, they try to get control. And from the sewers there, they created pestilence, filth, disease, the gnawing plague. It killed indiscriminately, wiped out basically the royal dynasty, in which a lot of the nobles stepped up, including the Renier family, who were kind of immune to this entire thing. Jacqueline being the highest noble born in the land, the de facto ruler. And as people begged Jacqueline for help, she didn't. She let them die. And the last human soul expired in Pont-et-Massieu. The mist came, and Richemulot came into the domains of Dread. She's a Wererat. So keep that in mind. She has a secret police of armed animated armors. She has the plague, which she still controls, the gnawing plague. Swarms of rats. She is a rat queen. And in her version of closing the mists, it's just that it's mists, but also there are rat swarms in there that endlessly attack any creature and then continually create. It's less silly than the Wall of Living Rats, but I like the Wall of Living Rats better. I'm not going to lie. It's interesting that her torment really doesn't exist. Reading up in the 5e version of her torment, it's basically like, she doesn't want to rule, but she has to. So her degrees are rash and self-serving. Her schemes kill most of the finer aspect of the high society, and she craves high society and opulence. And basically, each time the plague goes wrong, people want a new form of government. So they have to keep making new plagues. Most of this isn't a Darklord torment. Yeah, her torment is dumber in a lot of ways in 5e, because it's just like she has to rule, she can't have high society, and she has to have the constant threats of overturning her. Cool. I mean, the entire love thing and like also having, monophobia, that was also stupid, but I mean, like, they're both kind of terrible for curses. Jacqueline is herself very interesting, and I think there are aspects of both stories that I really like a lot. I think you definitely can walk away from the old story of very deeply tied into the multiple realms. Certainly speaking, I thought it would have been interesting if her family just was Wererats to begin with, and they connected with the ancient society in there. And there's aspects of it that are very interesting, and aspects that I think it could have been developed more. Because again, her turnaround from hating just Lowborn to all non-Wererats, it takes a lot. There's a lot of like big jumps there. Anyway, let's talk about Richemulot. It's two forms. So, talk about the second edition version of it, the original version of it. It's got wilderness, it's got 3 big cities, it's got colleges, cottages, monasteries, wizard compounds. It's a sparse and very great domain with 3 cities: Pont-et-Massieu, Saint-Ronges, and Moratingeny. I'm probably butchering these. Again, apologies. Oh, Saint-Ronges. Basically, the big thing about this is they are all cities that are partially vacant. That no one remembers them ever being filled, but it looks like there are once people in these places. And some of the cities are very noticeably empty. That's one of those things. And people have mysteriously disappeared. And there's rumors of arcane powers, great riches, great gems, in the strange, a lot of the old structures and stuff there. And it's also great sewer systems filled with Wererats. The people? Well, the interesting thing about the people here is they live in larger groups in a lot of these homes. Almost as if they're very rat-like, even if they aren't. They're also not very possessive of their things. There are a lot of abandoned stuff. There is no affluence in wealth and stuff. Poverty and starvations aren't really found in this land. Material status is found through information. Information is key to what the people are. Fashion and jewelry are still out there, but they just aren't as important. And the population of this land grows because people come from all the other lands in the core, finding a better life here. But the thing is, many of them vanish without a trace before they even get to settle down. And those that do, well, they have to basically swear allegiance, because that's the important part about the law here. If you are to live here, the major law is you must basically swear to help fight for the land if another threat comes. The Renier family rules, of course, with the biggest problem being between Jacqueline and her sister, being the big things. They have a lot of informants. Basically the sisters both being Wererats, being kind of one of those less known, the sort of known secrets at the top for most of like the high-end thing. It's not like it's a complete secret. And they both have suitors, but haven't been married. But yes, as of the time of Domains of Dread, Jacqueline had ruled for 25 years since killing her grandfather. You know, an amount of time. But yes, her one law, everybody has to have at least one weapon, and if an attack should come and a defense would be needed, Richemulot would all raise together. That's the only thing you need. That's the only major law. So those refugees, they come in and they swear fealty. And especially if you're a Wererat refugees, you have to go to Jacqueline personally and swear fealty to her personally. Now let's talk about the 5e version here. There are some similarities, but there are some differences. As you can see from the map here, it is a different map, but all three cities are here. The map is relatively simple. But yeah, hope and despair is what's going on in Richemulot here. Because the difference now is, it is plague horror, disease horror, and gothic horror. It's a combination of the gnawing plague now, which I do find very interesting in adding in, and does add in a level of it. It's a great place to live, as long as you can deal with the plague. Because sometimes places are closed, empty, abandoned when the plague rises, until then that the Castellus Silenciu open the gates. Basically, the police guards of the Jacqueline. The animated armors filled with rats. Yeah, that's what they are. They're animated armors filled with rats. So if you kill the animated armor, it becomes a rat swarm. Those are the guards that watch over the promenades and markets. Basically, occasionally, the plague just comes forth, stalks upon one of the cities, everything has to shut down. And it can be weeks or months of people just living in their own places, not supported by Jacqueline. She does nothing to help them. They have to live through that entire time until things open up again. The cycle of pain and going. The gnaws, the gnawing plague. With Jacqueline in charge. Yeah. There's no food, no medical aid to any of the quarantine communities. They're just to be quarantined. The residents have to basically contend with what's going on with the plague the best they can. And it still has the larger cities that are a lot empty. So, our three cities in 5e, we still have Pont-à-Mousson, the capital. Basically, the place where Jacqueline rules from. It has a very huge cosmopolitan area, a lot of great architecture. And there's rats there. Lots of rats. And a huge sewer system. Because, basically, in the center of an island in the river that passes through the city is Chateau d'Inlutit, which is the hereditary estate of the Renier family, where Jacqueline rules. But it also is the entrance to the basically underground city. The true city, the downward spilling palace that goes into a vast sewer system, which is the true city of Pont-Malou, the place of the Wererat domain. The true capital of this entire place. That is incredibly fascinating, and I really love that kind of aspect of it. St. Ranges is basically got a lot of mystery to it too. Basically, when Jacqueline got in charge, they resisted, they wanted freedom. Basically, since that day, they've been left to it and have suffered from the plague a lot more. And they keep petitioning Mademoiselle Renier for mercy, and she still considers it. Hasn't decided to give them mercy and help them out. And of course, Mortigny, the smallest of the cities, and the most overcrowded, with congested cities, buildings that are to their capacity. It was quarantined during the surging plagues, and anyone that enters understands they can't leave. So, sick are sent there. It's always under plague. It's also got a lot of medical practitioners, a lot of doctors that are there. And they try to stop the gnaws, but they can't really end it. Again, because they keep developing new plagues and playing around with it, making it a better plague and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's the city that's always under quarantine. While St. Ranges or Pont-à-Mousson kind of quarantine occasionally before opening up, especially the capital, Mortigny is always under quarantine. But there you go. There's the two versions of Renier and Richemulot. Again, I like some heavy aspects of the 5e version of it, of the quarantine area, but there were some aspects that were left over from Richemulot. I'm butchering this name and saying it so many different ways. That were very interesting in 2nd edition. I thought the idea of it being like this great place on the surface that people just disappear into, and also like information is the most important thing, was very interesting to the society. The idea of the plague isn't terrible either. Getting to somewhere in the middle, where what little of the high society that remains, exists on information, because it knows when, there are signs of something dangerous coming might exist here, and then you still have Mortigny closed off, St. Roge's kind of like left to its own devices a lot of times, and put a Monsieur being this main city, which kind of shuts down occasionally when the plague kind of goes up, the gnawing plague. But again, it's also that aspect of Jacqueline's curse sucks either way. Her story is kind of interesting in 5th edition. I do like it a little better, but there are aspects that I liked in 2nd edition better of her way. The fact that I think her grandfather being the original Darklord and being terrible, maybe Jacqueline being behind the plague, but her grandfather being the one taking charge and stuff like that, It's still empowerment as she then kills her grandfather. I think that's also like a mark of her evil. We already know that she like tried to change her twin sister and then figured her and exiled her, and her twin sister might still be there in the area. I'm sure those are like some basically adventures you could have. Deal with the plague, deal with her sister, maybe. Yeah, Louise is still out there and hates her sister. I guess the disfigured, maybe Wererat, exiled is a lot worse than just, murdering your lovers, but I don't know. Could be both nowadays. You never know. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting aspects to this. And I like I really do like the plague aspect of this entire thing, and plague horror being brought in here, along with that kind of gothic horror of, again, rats being plague infested, sewer infested, and wererats being the source of plague. Well, physically, it doesn't necessarily make sense, again, because, rats aren't as plague infested as people think. But, story-wise, I think it works great. But we'll leave that there. And I thank you for joining me today. Please check out the rest of my stuff, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube. If it's over on YouTube, you're just going to get tabletop stuff. But everything I do tabletop related gets uploaded over there. If you just want to see me live, I do stuff over on Twitch. That's recording videos like this. That's live plays of games like Fall of Avansful Wednesdays at 8. But all of my live plays, again, end up over and are archived over on YouTube, including Fall of Avansful. Discussing tabletop Saturdays at 6, my kind of talk show podcast thing where I discuss news of the week and more. Also ends up on YouTube. Over on Twitch, though, I also do some gaming, hanging with friends, just chatting, all those kind of basic, if you want to hang out and do some streamer stuff, cool, you can always join me there. Check out my social medias for, like, updates on scheduling, what's going on, all those kind of things. Trying to be better at that. I've kind of been a mixed bag of that over the years, but, trying to always make sure you know what's going on. At very least on Discord, usually sometimes over on the other ones, too. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. Thank you for joining me. Please do remember to subscribe over on YouTube, and let me know what you think of Jacqueline and Richemulot, and what do you think of the two versions of it? What do you like better? What aspects of you choose to kind of do in between the two of them? I'm interested, because it's one of those ones where I don't think either version is bad, and both versions are very similar enough that it isn't a big change between the two of them, but there are little aspects of it that are very interesting and different. It's one of those things, this is a very much so rewrite in a lot of ways, but it is that thing of, were the realms connected? Were they not connected? They're not now. It's kind of forgotten about. 5th edition does that a lot with Ravenloft. It selectively forgets things it wants to. Anyway, until the next time, I bid you all there a deep and wonderful farewell.